All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. I like holding the gavel. Good evening, Queen City Toastmasters, to all our members and guests and our online members and guests. I'm your Sergeant at Arms, Cameron Hamrick. And as my first time being Sergeant at Arms, I just wanted to cover some logistics. So if you're a first-time guest here, bathrooms are behind us. Women's is on this side, men's is on this side. You have two main exits, the one you came in back here and then one over here. And let's see what else. Oh, yes. And we have a very loud air conditioner. We're all thankful for our air conditioner, especially on days like today. But unfortunately, it's loud, so you have to speak up over it when you're up here. So just a reminder to speak up. And also at work, we always kick off meetings with a safety moment. So I'll give you one. So this past weekend was my son's 2-year birthday, and my uncle came up. And he showed me a picture that I would not ever show anybody else. But one of his coworkers was cutting his grass at home with a push mower and wearing flip-flops, foreshadowing, right? And he was going down the bank and his flip-flops slipped out from under him. And when he slipped, he pulled the lawnmower back over top of himself. And I'll just say that they were able to sew 3 of his toes back on. But yeah. So safety moment is always wear proper footwear when you're cutting grass. One more thing about audio, the microphone here is just for the folks on Zoom. You won't, if you're up here speaking, you can use the speakers. I mean, the folks on Zoom can hear the speakers as well, right? So it's your choice. You can use the microphone. You can use the speakers here. Oh, only the microphone now. Okay, so please use the microphone when you come up. So with that, I will turn it over. Our normal presiding officer isn't here. So our presiding officer for tonight is going to be our VP of Education, our incoming president, and the best beard in the club. Please welcome Dr. Eric Laxer.
Thank you, Cameron. That last designation is the one I am most proud of, but keep going because you'll be challenging me very soon. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. It is my privilege to welcome all of you to our meeting tonight. And one of the traditions that Toastmasters clubs have in general is to give guests who are here an opportunity to introduce themselves. The nice thing is you will see how a typical Toastmasters meeting is run. And just to give you some perspective, everybody who you see coming up here, starting with the next role, the Toastmaster, are members of our club who sign up to do different things, whether it's a role in a meeting or giving a speech. And so once you join a club, you have a chance to really do everything that you see people doing here. And it's a way to work on your speaking skills, your leadership skills, your organization skills. So with that, I am going to come out here and we have a couple of people here. Stephen, would you give us a chance to introduce yourself again? And we're glad you're back today and just share anything you'd like for the group today.
My name is Stephen. Thank you guys for having me back. Name is Stephen, here to just observe the different practices people are utilizing to be more effective speakers. So just trying to pick up on what I can.
Thank you. And our next guest is Dorothy. Brenda, sorry, is Brenda. Brenda, please reintroduce yourself and tell us how you found our group and what you're looking for in Toastmasters. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brenda Thompson, and I did a quick search today to identify a Toastmasters group because I had a really important meeting this morning, and I didn't feel that I did really well facilitating this meeting. I said, you know, I know Toastmasters could really benefit me professionally moving forward with the project I'm working on here in Charlotte, and found this meeting tonight, which was perfect. And I'm just happy to be here to learn how to communicate more effectively, how to present myself better in meetings, and to learn about how I can grow more professionally.
Thank you, Brenda. And I was telling Brenda when I was chatting with her before that that's the story most of us have. So you're in the right place. Vanessa? Carissa. Okay, Carissa, thank you.
Right. My name is Carissa with the K. I've been here so many times now, you would think I'm a member, but not yet. Tonight just might be the night. So officers, stick around. We'll have to chat later. I do work at a brand new hospital that opened not yesterday, but the Monday before. So I do need to capitalize on my public speaking and communication skills.
Thank you very much. Javi, your kids are here and we would invite them with the same opportunity. If either of you guys or both want to introduce yourselves and just share something about you at the club.
First off, thank you for having me here. My name is Jet Mack. I'm 16 years old and I'm here to listen to my dad give his speech.
Hi, I'm Janine. I'm a rising second year at the University of Virginia, and I'm also here to watch my dad speak, so, and support. All right.
Great to have you guys. Thank you for being here. And one more stop, Kendall. I know you were here before, but please feel free to introduce yourself. I'd like to get 0 out of 5 tonight. Okay. Well, do you have a role in the meeting tonight? Okay. All right. Okay. And I don't think we have any guests online. Of course. Gotcha. Princess, if you can hear me and you'd like to unmute yourself, and if you want, take your camera on, turn your camera on, you don't have to, but please feel free to introduce yourself and share with us how you heard about Toastmasters. Okay, we'll hold off on that for a sec. I do see Sonia Pons on there. And Sonia, if I know you're a Toastmaster member and you've done many, many things in Toastmasters over the years, if you want to introduce yourself and maybe just share with us a quick little anecdote about what Toastmasters has done for you, that'd be great.
Absolutely, family. Hi, my name is Sonia. I am a virtual Toastmaster member of District 37 in Silver Spring, Maryland. Toastmasters has done a lot for me. It's taught me that my voice is important and that I need to amplify it. If you don't use your voice, you will not earn your place in this world to make a difference. There's a quote from Warren Buffett that I think is so powerful. He says, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. I want you guys to look at your surroundings, look at the family you chose, or maybe the family you were born into, even the church that you're in right now. Someone had to put in the work to build you the shade, to give you covering. And there's someone else out there that needs the same covering. Toastmasters gave me the covering that I knew that my voice was strong enough to say something, because I was always self-muting myself. I didn't feel like I was important enough to say something. But in Toastmasters, where leaders and communicators are made, I realized that I was made to use my voice and to use it with purpose. And so I want you to think about the shade that you can build for other Toastmasters or just coworkers or family and friends that don't feel like they have a voice. You can provide them the covering to let them know that their voice is important and that can be amplified. And not only can they amplify it, but they can multiply it around the world in Toastmasters. If you didn't know, Toastmasters is in over 142 different countries, where 200, I believe now it's 250 members strong. You can impact someone that you may never ever get to meet through being active in Toastmasters. So I ask you, build the shade, because you never know who you'll be covering in the future. So thank you for letting me visit. I'm from South Park Toastmasters. You guys are our sister club, and you allow us to come and just hang out, and we're so appreciative of your shade. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonia. And with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our Toastmaster of the day for the day. He is our treasurer, and he has done a lot of behind the scenes work for our club, which he will continue to be doing. And please join me in welcoming Jamie Richardson as our Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Toastmaster Eric, future president, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am delighted to be your Toastmaster of the evening today. And my role is to facilitate tonight's meeting, but also to provide the theme for tonight's meeting. And tonight's theme is sports betting, the good and the bad. And just like I'm going to facilitate tonight's meeting, a bookie or bookmaker facilitates sports betting. And increasingly, Americans are on a first name basis with their bookie. There's a recent survey that shows that 20% of Americans have made a bet on a sporting event within the past year. And that's leading to an expectation that in 2023, sports wagering will exceed $100 billion and generate $10 billion in revenue. So it's no surprise then that North Carolina, among many states, has now jumped in with both feet into that gold rush by legalizing sports betting in recent legislation that was passed. Previously, us as North Carolinas could only make sports bets at 3 state-run casinos or through under the table and basically illegal bookies. But starting in June of 2024, we'll all have the right and the ability to make bets online at sites like DraftKings or at in-person venues like in Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium and Spectrum Center. So in tonight's theme, I will highlight some of the potential benefits for our state and North Carolina, as well as some of the potential negative impacts that could come from legalizing sports betting. But before I do that, I want to introduce some of our esteemed fellow Toastmasters who will help facilitate tonight's meeting, as well as make sure that at least for tonight, the odds are ever in our favor. I will start with our grammarian, Jackie Yorka.
Hello, Toastmasters and guests. My name is Jackie and I'm the grammarian for today's meeting. As grammarian, I'll be taking notes of any grammar mistakes and filler words. I will also keep an ear out for any cool words, quotes, and thoughts. To stick with today's theme from our Toastmaster, today's word of the day is parlay. Some may know parlay from Pirates of the Caribbean, or, as you mentioned earlier today, Seinfeld. Correct. However, my definition is a little bit different, or at least used differently. For example, sports betting, in which parlay means you can combine real-time bets into one. So if all of your bets win, hold on. A parlay is a type of sports bet in which you combine real-time bets into one. If all your bets win, you will win a much larger payout than if you had simply bet on each individual game. For example, let's say you bet on the following 2 games: the Heat versus the Nuggets, Panthers versus the Knights. Obviously, I'm voting for both the Heat and the Panthers as a South Floridian, and obviously I lost my parlay bet. Please do not clap there. Thank you. Parlays can be a great way to increase your potential winnings, but they are also riskier bet. If you are not confident in your picks, it is best to avoid parlays. I encourage all of you to use the word parlay in your speeches today. You can use it to talk about sports betting, or you can use it in a more general sense to talk about taking a risk. Thank you for your time. I will be providing a report on the use of the word of the day and grammar usage at the end of the meeting today. So thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And thank you for the excellent tutorial. All of us should start to be taking notes on how we can make the most of our betting futures here in a few short months. I also want to introduce our timer for the day, Toastmaster David Jones, to introduce his role.
Thank you, sir. And those of you on Zoom, we will have the speaker view up in a moment. But as timer, part of Toastmasters is to try to keep your speeches within a certain amount of time. Today, we have an icebreaker and a regular speech. Our icebreaker is going to be 4 to 6 minutes. At 4 minutes, I'm going to turn on the lights. Green at 4 minutes, at 5 minutes, yellow, and red at 6. And for our table topics, which hopefully some of you will get to do, 1 minute, we're going to do green, and 1.5 yellow, and 2 at red. And as Sonia always likes to say, go for the green. Always try to make at least 1 minute when you're doing an icebreaker. And our evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. Green at 2 minutes, 2.5 is yellow, and red is at 3. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, David. All right, now on to the main event. I am thrilled to welcome 2 guest speakers today who are delivering speeches. Both of them are making a bet on themselves just by coming up here. And so first, please join me in welcoming Javi Mack, who is delivering his icebreaker speech titled The Lion and the Mouse as part of the Presentation Mastery Pathway. Welcome, Javi.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters and guests, those here presently and those watching virtually, for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you. I'm from Spring Lake, North Carolina, which is a small town right outside of Fort Bragg, which has recently been renamed Fort Liberty. Side note, I was born at Fort Bragg, so my birth certificate says Fort Bragg. Do I now start saying Fort Liberty? I digress. I was born with an identical twin brother, which is the reason why I joined Toastmasters. You may ask yourself, how does with whom someone's born with become a reason for joining Toastmasters? And I'll get to that. Being a twin means that you are essentially born with a built-in best friend. However, for my brother and I, we were born with our fiercest competitor, each other. We constantly try to one-up each other. And that happens, we constantly try to one-up each other and try to get over and just take over anything that we both are involved in. We try to be the number one. And that happens when speaking as well. We've learned to talk so fast, super fast, that it's become a phenomenon to people who sit and watch us. It's actually a literal verbal race to try to get our point across first. We try to complete each other's sentences in order to try to get our own point across first. Our friends, our parents, our spouses have constantly tried to get us to slow down so they can understand what we're talking about. They are amazed when we are in a spirited conversation. One of the things that when we are actually speaking, there are things that we say that people do not have an idea what we're talking about. And there are times when our conversations become so flurried and fast that they are thinking that we are angry and something's going on. Our family, friends, other people around, they try to jump in and diffuse the situation when to us, it's merely a harmonic conversation. Although we did the same things, had the same interests, and navigated within the same social circle, our line in the sand was dressing alike. We stopped dressing alike past the 1st or 2nd grade, which draws me to one example of one of those spirited conversations. When we were 16 or 17 years old, we went to a house party, and we arrived there at different times. While there, I was on the dance floor getting my boogie on, and I did not notice my brother come in. And while I was there, someone ran up to me, hurriedly, out of breath, looking bewildered, and asked, what's going on? Did you do this on purpose? And before I can answer, did what? I can see in my peripheral vision, my brother. And when we locked eyes, all we had was pure disgust and anger for what we saw. We were dressed alike. Yes. You would think that our red line being dressed alike, that we would collaborate to discuss what we're wearing or who's going to wear what first whenever we go somewhere that we know we're going to be together at. Alas, that did not happen. Right there in front of 25 people at this house party, we began to have a spirited conversation, so much so that the music stopped. Everyone stopped and stared as if time froze, and we didn't even notice. And people were saying that we sounded as if we were speaking an alien language. This is something that's still talked about today amongst our friends. This happened, I want to say 2 years ago, but I want to give my age, a long time ago. That alien language is how I feel I sound when I'm speaking in front of people. When I'm not paying attention to what I'm saying, I feel I tend to speak faster and I've become incoherent in my own mind. When I'm trying to speak slow and intentional, I get into my own head of what I'm trying to say. And that's when the battle of what I'm trying to convey versus what is in my head versus what comes out of my mouth becomes incongruent. Now, getting to the topic of the icebreaker, the lion and the mouse. I served 25 years in the military. I retired 3 years ago. When I was in the military, I had the courage and confidence of a lion. I was not afraid to get out there and tell people what needs to be done at any given time. As I ascended the ranks, I was able to present to seniors, peers, and subordinates alike. As a military recruiter, I stood in front of student bodies, whole classes of student bodies, to discuss the benefits of joining the Army. I recruited, there was the people that I recruited, I had no problems discussing with them and presenting and instructing on how to learn the military ranks, the phonetic alphabet, many subjects, how to disassemble and assemble an M4 rifle, all kinds of instructions I gave in front of people. And as when I became an HR warrant officer, I had no problem being in front of leaders, senior leaders, to discuss HR metrics. But somewhere along the way, I became that timid mouse, and I gave way to anxiety. That courage gave way to anxiety. So in summary, that's why I am here, because I want to parlay that, take the risk of being here and parlay that lion that I once was into the mouse and go right back to the lion. So first and foremost, I want to build my confidence in speaking in front of large groups. Secondly, I want to improve my diction where it's intentional versus where it's automatic versus intentional. And lastly, I want to receive constructive feedback without fear of judgment in a safe environment. And all these are the reasons why I joined Toastmasters. Again, thank you for time. Thank you for taking the time to be here and listen to my speech.
So we have a tradition here for folks on their icebreaker. We give a standing ovation. So if everyone can join me in congratulating Javi on his icebreaker. And I'll say thank you for your service, Javi, as well as talk about courage. This is courage getting up here and delivering that speech. So congratulations. All right. Our next speaker is a regular Toastmaster and a regular speaker. So Bill Fountain will be delivering his speech titled A Quick Look at Catastrophism as part of also the Presentation Mastery Pathway. So please join me in welcoming Bill.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Get the correctly organized up and the clicker. Six
practice
to
it
eight
before you get
minutes,
started?
6 to 8 minutes, right?
6 to 8.
All right.
Want to practice before we get going?
All right, let me just do one.
Here. Here it is. Well, no,
It works. All right.
no, it didn't work yet.
Oh, it did. I flipped it back.
Oh, you did. Oh.
I did. I flipped it back.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming out tonight. I'm Bill Fountain, and I'm honored here to be with my fellow Toastmasters and honored guest. I'm going to be talking about quick look at catastrophism, and it's a really thing looking at the way of a young Earth genealogy or geology. And one of the things is that I grew up as a Baptist, and as a Baptist, I learned about Genesis, the story of Genesis, and about the flood and about the origin of life. And so I always thought that was the way it was. And then as soon as I got to school, it happened. And in other words, the earth started getting longer and longer and longer. It was like millions of years. And then now it's up to 4.5 billion years in our today's reckoning. So I stumbled upon this notion right here of catastrophism about several years ago. And I want to give you a little bit of quick insight into that. And one of the things, one of the first ones is that you've got here a tree that's all encapsulated. They're all now a fossil. And the only way that could happen is if you had some surge of mud, gunk, and all that stuff that surrounded this tree. And then after several years, all this stuff fossilized. So that is one of the things that we're going to talk about. Take a look at here is that the normal notion is, I'm going to speak into this thing. The normal notion is that the layers upon layers are built up over the centuries and billions of years. However, how in the world could you have this seafloor sitting up top of this mountain? Some upheaval had to put that thing there. Well, there we go. And then the next way is the Painter Desert. They also have found, and this is out here in the southwest of the country, they've also found dinosaurs, shrimp, fish, marine animals, and of course the trees. They're all been a part of this right here, and that can't be built up over the years because all this came surges in together. The next is this just kind of gives you a snapshot of how this could really happen. Is Mount St. Helens, where they had this huge explosion, and look what this guy did. This canyon that was built up was actually happened in a day. It's 17 miles long, and it's about 140 feet of height that came through that. And then on this, the same day or the next day after, you got 400 feet of sediment that was built up in a very quick order in one day. This is a coal formation, and here you would think that the natural process of building these things up, but what happened is that you either had a very thick forest or peat bog or something like that, and then you had a gush of all of this molten rock and et cetera that comes up on and layers on top, and you have your coal. Now, as a kid, I knew all about, well, I knew what I was, taught in the Sunday school, et cetera, about Noah's flood and about the ark. And supposedly, this is right here is what well, you can see what the picture looks like. Some people say that's the ark. Some people say it's not. So I don't know what the real answer is, but I thought it was interesting. It does look like it's on Mount Ararat, which is kind of like what the Bible says. But even though there's a lot of different views about the pre-flood, there's a lot of scientists believe that really there was one land mass, and where they all kind of fit together like a puzzle. And that the fact that allowed these dinosaurs and et cetera to move all around the earth. And then, of course, they had some shallow seas and lowlands. There wasn't a lot of big mountains. Now, in the Bible, it talks about having a dome over the earth of water, and then underneath the earth, there's water. And then, so how could that happen? Well, if you had a balloon that, in other words, something that's shaped on the outside, you'd have the water on the outside and then the water on the inside. And that's how it'd be able to get the cooling, not the cooling, but the warming of the earth. And you can actually have a greenhouse effect with that. And with that, there's those warm temperatures in almost the poles that would allow for a longer life for the supporting men and for the dinosaurs. But In order for that to happen, dinosaurs required a denser atmosphere. In other words, is that these guys won't be able to fly in the density that we have today. There's no way they could get airborne. Yet, if you look at this slide over here, is that as you get up over here to about 4 atmospheres, that's be enough thickness of air for these guys to fly. So if you saw Jurassic Park, but anyway, so this pressure, higher pressure, is going to allow people to live longer, even up to maybe the years of Methuselah, which I think you probably all remember was around 900 years, and reptiles to keep growing big, like end up being as big as dinosaurs. And this is the oldest living tree in the United States, almost 5,000 years old. That's pretty good. Here are some of the young facts about the young Earth. The first one is the high gas and oil pressure, oil and gas pressures, which you think that they would be a lot less if it was 4.5 billion years old. And the same thing right here about the magnetic field. We do have a strong magnetic field, even though it's decaying, but if it was 4.5 billion years, it would be nothing like it is today. The next thing is that on both, one scientist went out and he derived this, that the helium diffusion and the argon diffusion indicates life about 6,000 to 5.1 billion million years. No, 1,000 years. This is an interesting, the Earth's decay is if you measure that, you went back 4.5 billion years, in one day, it would take an hour and a half. Can you imagine you'd be flinging stuff off the Earth, overcoming the gravitational pull. And the next one is that the contrails of these comets and the spiral galaxies would be all wrapped up. And the other one is that with the sediment, there's a very little sediment relatively on the bottom of the sea, where you'd have all the runoff and et cetera coming off from the mountains and the rivers and et cetera, but it's not a whole bunch of stuff there that would indicate that the thing was 4.5 billion years old. So this has been a quick look at the catastrophism, and to me, it supports the young Earth theory. Now, there are arguments on all sides, and I'm not here to tell you which one is the right one. I'm telling you what I am kind of inclined toward, and I just say, I'll just parlay all of this toward the idea that we have a young Earth. Of course, that's all up to you, but I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm a geology nerd, so I love seeing all these pictures. Fantastic. Don't get me started on igneous rock, Bill. All right. So congratulations to our speakers again. So fantastic job. We'll hear back from our evaluators in a little bit, as well as our timers report, but we'll push that to the end of the meeting. I now want to start to talk a little bit about the decision, the bold decision perhaps, for North Carolina to legalize sports betting. And what supporters will tell you is it's already happening. What Cameron will tell you is it's already happening, because I talked to him about it beforehand. And all we're doing is giving up tax revenue. So by not having it legalized within the state, we either force people to go to online sites, to go to bookies under the table, and we're just losing out on keeping that money within the state. And it could be a lot of money. Under the new legislation, operators will be taxed 18% of their revenue, and that's estimated to generate $100 million in tax revenue for the state of North Carolina within 5 years. Those funds will be used to fund the university systems within North Carolina. They'll be used to fund amateur athletics, and they'll also be used to fund gambling addiction programs. So already a sense of some of the potential trade-offs associated with this. Another potential benefit is tourism. So one of the more popular forms of sports betting today is to go into a live sporting event, and you actually bet on things like the very next play at a football game. Is this going to be a pass play or a run play? You're sitting there at your seat and you're on your phone, and it just brings a whole nother level of engagement to live sporting events. And what that does, it gets people off their couches, gets them into arenas, gets them spending money, and that's a benefit from a tourism perspective. At the end of the day, what proponents say is that this is about choice. Giving North Carolinians choice about how and where they bet on sports. Speaking of choice, all of you now have choice to participate and volunteer in our table topics portion of the meeting. So please join me in welcoming our table topics master who is online, and I'll stay up here to hand off the mic, Toastmaster Allie.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie and fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. And my role tonight is table topic speaker. We use this role as a way to improve our confidence and our impromptu skills. And this is intended to help our members develop their ability to organize their thoughts quickly and respond in an impromptu to a question. And in keeping with the theme, I have taken the questions. It's an analogy with sports betting and life questions. So who would like to be our first volunteer?
Toastmaster Cameron.
Wonderful. Okay.
You can go ahead and read your question. I'll hand him the mic.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. In both life and sports betting, taking risks is a fundamental aspect. Just as bettors analyze odds and make calculated bets, individuals in life make decisions that involve risks, whether it's pursuing a new career, starting a business, or entering into a new relationship. Taking risk is an inherent part of both endeavors. Share with us a time where you took a risk.
Thank you for the question, Allie. Well, I'll give you some examples of both sides of it. So recently, my good friend Jordan, he sent out a invite to over 150 people to be in the US Open golf pool. And the idea is each golfer before the contest starts is given a point value, mostly based on how good of a golfer they are or have been recently. And you're supposed to build your team with 18 points or less. So for example, Scotty Scheffler, #1 in the world, he's a 10-point golfer, but the new amateur who just joined the Pro Tour might be a 1-pointer. You have Ricky Fowler, who's an 8-pointer. And so you have to build your team, and you can build as many teams as you want with only using the same golfer once. And winner first place this year was over $700 for only a $10 buy-in, but you risk losing that $10. In life, I have an aspiration to be a business owner, specifically a laundromat owner. So I'm taking risk in that regard. I've got a business partner whose spouse is actually a member here at Toastmasters. And we're moving along. We've got an LLC set up, and we've got some sponsors and some coaches and some financing set up. And it's going to be an interesting next 6 months. And I'm looking forward to it. So there was an example of sports betting and real life. Thank you for the question, Allie.
Thank you, Cameron. Okay, who would like to be the next volunteer?
Yasmin. All right. Welcome.
Okay, Jasmine. In sports betting, losses are inevitable. Bettors use their losses as a learning experience to improve their strategies and make better decisions in the future. Likewise, in life, setbacks and failures can be valuable lessons to help us grow, learn, and make more informed choices. Share with us a time where you used your lessons learned to thrive.
I would say a time that I used a lesson to grow actually led me here to Toastmasters. I work in marketing for Circle K, and I actually had to give a large presentation with my counterpart in Canada, just kind of giving the business an update on just our social media tactics and what we're doing in the space. And I was very nervous. Going into the meeting. Our immediate team in Charlotte was all in the same room. And then everyone else was virtual. And I was panicking a little bit, and I didn't realize that we weren't on mute. So my VP heard me freaking out because my notes weren't showing up. And it was just the most mortifying thing, to be 100% honest. But, you live and you learn. So from that, I really had to sit back and look at the fact that a lot of people have imposter syndrome. It's real. And just because I am one of the youngest people in my space doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. So I feel like that really led me to, one, join Toastmasters, and two, kind of just increase my confidence when I'm speaking, when I'm presenting, and just honestly in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. We've got time for a couple more.
Yasmin. Okay. Who would like to be the next volunteer?
We've got Kendall. Welcome, Kendall.
Okay, Kendall. In sports betting, the outcome is determined by a combination of skill, knowledge, and luck. Similarly, in life, the outcomes are influenced by various factors, including our choices, our circumstances, and external forces. Just as bettors adapt their strategies based on changing odds or circumstances, individuals must adapt to unexpected situations and adjust to their lives. Share with us a time where you adjusted due to changing odds and circumstances.
The question was, what's the time that I've adjusted to odds and circumstances? Gosh, this is kind of tough. So it's 2023 now. 2 years ago, I got COVID, and it was pretty rough. I ended up having to go to the hospital because I passed out while I was walking my dog. So it was pretty bad. When I came back from, obviously being out for like 2 weeks, I think I had lost like 10 pounds, 10, 15 pounds. I was pretty bad off. So I was playing basketball with some of my friends, and I was just doing really, really bad. I'm already not all that nice anyway, but this is even worse. And one of my buddies saw me miss like a wide open layup, and he's like, "Dang, really? Like, come on, man." And I felt terrible. I'm like, "Dang, I can't even make a wide open layup." So at that point, I got upset. I was a little upset. My ego was hurt. So I promised myself, I'm like, I'm gonna hoop for 100 hours and get better for like the whole summer. I think at the time it was August. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna hoop until I get better, and I'm gonna track my progress. So I had made like a video of it. I had documented everything, played basketball basically every day, and actually put the first 10 hours on YouTube. So I ended up joining 2 leagues. I would organize basketball games with my friends on the weekends, and we'd play basically every day all together. And so that's a kind of an example of where I kind of tried my best to adapt to the situation, because obviously I lost a lot of weight, and it's been a bad situation. And coming out of that, I said, well, I need to adapt to something that I have a goal of doing. And, it took a lot of work to get there, but I was able to accomplish that. So.
Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you. We have time for one more, I think.
Okay. One more volunteer.
Jackie. Sorry, Mike. Well, Jackie already has, yeah. Mike, you want to come on up? All right, we got Mike.
Okay. Okay, Mike. The phrase "all bets are off" is an idiom that means all previous agreements or expectations are no longer valid or binding. It is also indicate that circumstances have changed, nullified, assumptions, commitments. The origin of this phrase can be traced back to the world of gambling. In betting, when all bets are off, it means that an existing wager or bet has been canceled. It signifies that previous agreements and predictions can no longer be relied on. Shared a time when you used "all bets are off."
Share a time that I use all bets are off. I would say I'm kind of doing that right now. As you guys know, about 2 years ago, I started doing real estate investing, but I kind of took the more simple route as far as kind of just buying properties that didn't need too much work, and then finding a tenant that would stay in that property. So now I'm actually taking up a new challenge, which is to flip houses. So right now I'm currently, looking for properties that are tore down, missing roof, no paint, holes in the floors, holes in the walls, all that stuff, so that I can now partake in flipping houses. And so I guess with that example, I kind of use the term "all bets are off" because I feel like that's more of a high risk strategy in real estate investing, but it's higher reward. And for me, I'm actually trying to get out of my job, which is in IT. And so I feel like a faster way to get out of my job is to probably take on higher risk challenges in real estate. So I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what, all bets are off. Let me just try to, do the real estate flipping. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, I think we'll stop there, Allie. So thank you
Okay.
to our table topics master of the evening, and congratulations to all of our table topics participants. If I could have put a parlay bet on all of y'all at the beginning, I would have paid off handsomely. All right, give me the benefit of the doubt. All right, let's move on. So Kendall's not a fan. Opponents of the new legislation legalizing sports betting. What they'll say, because as Allie said, gambling is all about taking risks. And in this case, the risks far outweigh the benefits to the state, to the people of North Carolina, especially the risks to vulnerable populations who already struggle with gambling. By making it easier, by making it more acceptable, it increases the probability or the odds that we'll have more people suffering from gambling addiction. And gambling addiction is a particularly insidious form of addiction. In fact, it is categorized or classified by the American Psychiatric Association in the exact same category as heroin addiction and opioid addiction. So think about that for a second, that we are legalizing behavior that, at least for some individuals, is so addictive and so destructive that it's like taking heroin or taking oxy. A second, less harmful, but still problematic risk associated with gambling is the potential risk and the impact to the integrity of sports. With billions of dollars at stake, there will be more incentives for players to potentially manipulate games, which is called sports fixing, and that's illegal. But with that much money at stake, we could be gambling away the very integrity and soul of sports. Don't have a good segue for this, but we're now going to move to our evaluation portion of the meeting. So please join me in welcoming our general evaluator, Yasmin.
Hello again, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. My name is Yasmin Rigo, and I am going to be the general evaluator for this evening. To evaluate the speeches for today, we have Dr. Eric Laxer, who will be evaluating Javi's speech.
Thank you, Yasmin. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Icebreaker speeches are special. They're special for a variety of reasons. And Javi, tonight, I think you really gave us a special speech. I'm going to highlight 4 things that I think you did well, and I'm going to name them the Fab Four, kind of like the Beatles are the Fab Four. And then I'm going to offer a few suggestions of things that I think you can work on going forward. So the first thing that I think you did well was you came up here, you seemed comfortable. You acknowledged everybody in the room, including people on Zoom. You looked around and you made eye contact, and you continued to do so through your speech, which I think is a very important component of speaking. The second thing that I think you did extremely well was you told us a story. Anybody who knows a great feature of successful public speakers is the ability to tell a story. And not only did you tell us a story, but you told it beautifully with imagery. And on some occasions while you were speaking, it made it feel like I was sitting there. Let me give you a couple of examples. When you were talking about your twin brother at the dance, and you said, I was on the dance floor getting my boogie on. I think almost everybody in the room was nodding as soon as you said that, because we know what that's like. And then when you described the music stopped, you had a spirited conversation with your brother. People were standing around you in silence, watching what was happening, and you were speaking like in an alien language together. I could see that, and I thought that was an excellent tool that you used extremely, extremely well. The third thing is you used imagery with contrast. I love the title of your speech, The Lion and the Mouse. And even before you gave your speech, you had me wondering what you were going to be talking about and where you were going to be taking us. So I thought that contrast was fantastic. And the fourth thing you did that I really appreciated was you shared with us, and you were very clear on your goals. And your goals were to take yourself back to that point in your life you know you're capable of, which is being an excellent public speaker. And from everything that I saw here today, I completely agree with you. If I could suggest something that you could work on, really you're at the beginning of your journey. And so as you go through pathways, you're going to learn vocal variety, stage presence, body language. And so all those things are going to come to you as you work on your speeches. Well, one of the things you mentioned was speaking quickly and speaking fast. And I have 2 suggestions. One is I've seen Andrea do this almost every time she comes up here. She takes her time, she gets introduced, and she's patient, and she takes a deep breath. And when she's ready, she starts speaking. And I think that's a great tool. And the second thing is maybe think of like a song in your head that has a really nice tempo that you like. And so when you're speaking, try to just subconsciously mirror some of the tempo in that song, and maybe that'll work. In summary, this was a great starting point. Strong buildings start with strong foundations, and I think you have that. Congratulations. Back to you, Madam Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Dr. Laxer. Next we have our Miss Chocolate Butterfly, who will be evaluating Bill's speech.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Thank you for your time today. Thank you, Bill, for giving us this speech. I remember taking geology and failing miserably. It's the one class in college that I didn't fail. I got a D plus, so I passed. But that was the one class I didn't do well in. And the reason why is because it was boring to me. It just was too many rocks, and it was too many things I had to understand. And Andrea just couldn't get it to her head. So being able to listen to you today gave me a little more insight on what I should have been thinking about. Like, I remember them talking. The only thing that was very interesting to me was how many levels of the earth it was and how the earth has developed. That was the only thing I remember. The only part of it that I think I got completely right. So listening to you today gave me some perspective. You were talking about your encounter with your beliefs versus what you see, what they've been taught. And I had a similar situation in school again, where my professor said, what you're telling me doesn't make sense. And she challenged me. She said, do your research. So eventually I did my research versus what they teach you at church and what they teach you in school, in science and evolution and geology. And I had to come to the conclusion that both stories had holes in them. And both stories did not seem completely true. So the only thing I could rely on is that there had to be a higher power that brought all this together. So that was my stance. Which brings me to your speech today. You provided us with all of this wonderful information without really saying where you sat on either side. I thought that was very interesting because most people have to take a clear parlay one way or the other. They're not gonna put themselves in the middle and let you decide. They want you to agree with them. And that's just kind of human nature, right? So I thought that was something good that you did. You gave great examples. You gave great examples of what you could find, what was the research showing that gave you this concept of maybe there's something else out there. That was very good. The showing us, speaking of the exploration findings, the animals and the mountain dimensions and the different things of that way, and correlating it again to the Bible story, to catastrophe. I'm not going to say that word because it's going to be a catastrophe. So I'm not going to say the word. So that was a very good usage of going back and forth or parlaying back and forth. Use of inflection in your voice. Like I said, this is a subject I absolutely applaud, but you made it exciting today because you were excited. And because you were excited, you put inflection in your voice to let us know we needed to get excited about it too. So the one thing that I asked that you would do on your next time when you get up is provide us with a call of action. Don't apologize for the misspeaks. We all do them. Just take a deep breath and then keep on talking. But let us be able to parlay your message to what we can do, because it might be a subject that we don't like. Give us some real value to it. So that would be what I would ask that you would do, because other people may not be familiar. Bring us into your speech. Ask us if we're familiar with what you're talking about. But if we had a similar situation, bring us into that. And then your speech will be more fluid between what you're showing us, what you're saying, and what you're doing. Great use of stage, great use of body language, and I appreciate your speech today. Real evaluator.
Thank you. And now we'll have David Jones come up and give us the timers report.
Thank you. No, I do have a question for our Toastmaster, and I don't know the answer to it. And I would parlay all of my money on the answer that I think it is. Is sports betting going to be 7 days a week? Do you know? You don't know. Okay. I'm just wondering, because here in the Bible Belt of North Carolina, we can't buy chicken sandwiches on Sunday. We can't go to ABC on Sunday. We can't have a beer until afternoon, but I have a feeling we're going to be allowed to gamble as if it was a opioid addiction on Sundays here in North Carolina. Now our timers, time goes, Javi was 4 to 6 minutes as an icebreaker, came in at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Oddly, Bill was 6 to 8 minutes and he came in at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. They were both identical speeches. Sounds kind of funny. For our table topics, Cameron came in at 1:37, Yasmin 1:24, Kendall 2:15. There was a 30-second grace period on either side, and Mike at 1:22. Dr. Eric came in at 3 minutes and 24 seconds, just made it, and Andrea at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Madam General Evaluator.
Right. Thank you. Next, I will be evaluating the meeting as a whole. I would say today's meeting really just had a really good flow. There was this lightheartedness to the meeting today, in my opinion, that I really enjoyed. Cameron started us off by really setting the tone with his conversational, just kind of witty way about himself, which I feel like led into the rest of the meeting. I really enjoyed the timeliness of Jamie's theme. I feel like sometimes the themes are a little bit more evergreen and could really just be used at any time, but this was very timely and something that's just very relevant right now. I also felt like there was a good balance between Bill's speech, which was more educational, and then Javi's speech, which was really just like more obviously like authentic about himself. So I feel like there was a really good balance there. I do agree with Andrea that I also got a D in geology. And the only reason I even got that is because I was dropping the pictures in a Google image search. So yes, that was the only class I ever got below a B in, and I was very upset about it. But I won't take away from your speech because of that. I feel like, and just opportunities for improvement. I feel like the engagement today wasn't as high as usual, like especially with table topics. At first, everybody was kind of waffling, nobody really wanted to go, but I mean, that's fine. It's not going to be, everyone's not going to want to go every time, which is completely fine. But outside of that, I feel like it's been a great meeting, and I will go ahead and have Jacqueline come up to give the grammarian report.
So this was my first time being grammarian, and I don't think I'm very good at it because I'm really invested in the stories and I don't pay attention to the so's, but I did keep note of them as much as I could. So Jamie, and I don't know if I'm doing the format right, so just let me know after this meeting, but this is how I formatted it. Jamie, I enjoyed today's theme. Thank you for saying parlay multiple times. And even when you got caught off guard, you did not say the word which is like a magic trick to me. So congrats there. Bill, don't remember you saying great job with your speech. Allie said a few but you have a great speaker's voice. And just like the last time, your questions were great. Just my own personal thought. Jasmine, you said, so I made note of this. You said a few times, but most of them were in the beginning of your sentence. So I know it's difficult in the middle of your sentence to stop saying but at least for next time when you get up, that's something you can remind yourself when you get up to speak. Kendall, you said a few times, but you do have a great speaker's voice. So I could see you being very successful in the future. I said Mike, you said maybe once your voice was very confident and stronger than what I've seen so far in this club. So I wanted to make note of that. Chocolate Butterfly, thank you for saying parlay multiple times as well. And you did say or so once or twice, but you did a great job. Thank you.
And finally, I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Jamie Richardson.
Thank you, Yasmin. That was Yasmin's first time as general evaluator, and I thought it was a fantastic job. So congratulations. Look forward to having you sign up again soon. Thank you all for coming out for tonight's meeting. Look, sports betting, when done responsibly, can be fun. Could be a good time. It could also be a reliable and new source of revenue for the state of North Carolina. But it can also be pretty damaging. And so it's up to us as a community to make sure that we are understanding the impacts of legalizing sports betting, especially for individuals who struggle or could struggle with that addiction. That could be friends, could be colleagues, it could be family members. And it behooves us to be aware of the signs and make sure that we help those individuals seek out the available help that hopefully will come up as part of legalizing sports betting within North Carolina as well. So thank you for letting me be your Toastmaster of the evening. And I will now turn it back to our presiding officer, Toastmaster Eric.
Thank you, Jamie. Excellent, excellent job. Very informative. And it really caught my attention when you talked about sports gambling being as addictive as narcotics and heroin and morphine. And that's a really, really scary, scary thought. I have a couple of orders of business to take care of today as presiding officer. The first is to welcome and provide a ribbon to two of our new members. And please join me. We'll start by welcoming Kendall up to the front as one of our newest members. And and then I believe we have not done this for this new member in the past. And so he has two ribbons today. One is for being one of our newest members, and the other is for really having done an outstanding job with his icebreaker speech. So please again, join me in giving a warm hand to Javi. Okay, we have a couple of minutes and I'm just going to go around the room and offer our guests an opportunity to share their thoughts and observations of the meeting. And I had such a tumultuous start at the beginning of the meeting. I decided to write down all our guests' names. So if I get them wrong, I have no excuse, and I'm going to come over here and we're going to start with Janine.
Yes.
Please join me in giving Janine a warm hand.
This was very interesting. My first time being at a Toastmasters. Yeah, it was very cool seeing all of you speak. You all did a very good job. Thank you.
It's also my first time being at a Toastmasters. You know, everybody was very articulate with their words, and it's a very interesting experience to being here, you know.
Thank you, Jet. And now Carissa.
This is probably my 5th or 6th time. I can't even count anymore. So that's a sign I should probably officially sign up.
Awesome. Jamie, our Toastmaster, is the person you need to parlay with after the meeting. And then we will ask Brenda to please share her thoughts on today's meeting as well.
Thank you. I thought it was very insightful. I have like 3 pages of notes, so I look forward to attending the next meeting and continuing to learn.
Thank you. And Stephen?
I really enjoyed the topic about sports betting. Listening to everybody give their responses reminded me that when betting on yourself, it's important to be clear and confident in what you're going for and just go for it. So it was kind of motivating or it motivated me to, or inspired me to want to take advantage of getting up there. I've noticed Kendall get up there each time since we've been here. And now he's a new member and I've watched your progress. So that was inspiring. Very good job, JB and Mike, you know, so yeah, it was a good night.
And are you Brian? Yep. So please give us a chance or just introduce yourself. Tell us how you found our group and offer your observations for tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight.
My name is Brian, and a friend of mine is apparently in the group. I just found out tonight, but I came here a few years ago and just first time in a couple of years, just trying to get over a couple of social anxieties, I guess you could say. And it was really entertaining speeches and very informational, and it gets me thinking about all the things I need to be thinking about so that I can be in your place, hopefully in a few months.
Great. Thank you very much. I will just make one announcement, and that is for those who are not already aware, we don't have a meeting next week because it's the 4th of July. And are there any other announcements or questions from the floor or from any of our officers? If not, once again, I want to thank everybody for their participation, and I will now call this meeting to a close.